You may have seen that Banksy, the street artist, he put one of his sculptures up. Apparently it was like a satellite dish type thing, and somebody nicked it. And also he did one of his stencil things of some animals, and somebody has painted over it. Does that give rise to any legal issues? Yes, it does, and they're quite interesting. And I can speak with some, I won't say authority, perhaps experience on this, because I was actually involved in a case where this very much featured. Now, for all this sort of GDPR reasons and confidentiality, I can't go into details about that. But let me just say that I know a little bit about what might happen in this scenario. So there's a couple of things to consider. First of all, if with regards to his sculptures, if he places like a physical item there, who actually owns that? Does Banksy himself own it? Because, you know, he created it. So once he creates it, he has the best title to it, unless, of course, he's doing it on a commission or something like that. But the way, I won't get into details about the way the Banksy works, because I don't want to spoil the mystery. It's a bit like the Stig. It's like everybody knows, but it's fun to play along. Once, however, he leaves it in a public space, has that property been abandoned? Because he never comes and collects them back or anything, does he? And the thing is, if property has been abandoned, remember my video the other day about theft and permanently depriving? Well, as I said, the definition of theft is dishonest appropriation of property belonging to another with an intention of permanently deprive. But does the property belong to another? Well, initially it belonged to Banksy. But what happens once he goes, like, leaves it somewhere? Because property that has been abandoned has no owner, and therefore you can't steal it. Now you might think, oh great, I'm just going to go and, you know, go dumpster diving and root through bins and things like that. Actually, if things have been put in proper, like, you know, for disposal, actually, the law, as far as the law is concerned, you still own all your rubbish until the bin men come and take it away, and then the local council gets good title to that. So actually, technically, you know, rooting through bins can count to theft. Although, having said that, I had a case once where this crops up, and the judge just said, he said, I go rooting through skips all the time. I said, like, you know, that's where I got my printer from. And he acquitted my lass, because she had been allegedly swiped some stuff from Portobello Road Market. And there was an argument as to whether it was in storage or it had just been left there as they all disappeared at the end of the day. But technically speaking, even stuff that's been left out for the bin men still belongs to somebody. If it's just like fly tipped, then no, it doesn't. This crops up a lot actually in terms of search warrants and things, especially in America, where there's this idea that because you own your rubbish, they need a search warrant to search your bins until it's actually been mixed up with all the general rubbish. Then they don't need a search warrant. So they sort of have to stand there behind the bin wagon and let it all go in and get churned up a bit. And then they can actually go there without a search warrant. But so there you go. So that's, the property has been abandoned. So if a sculpture has just been left and somebody swipes it, then it had no title. It didn't belong to anybody. You know, effectively it was being fly tipped. But if you collect it, you can then get good title to it. So whoever did swipe that, so long as, I mean, you might get into an argument if it was erected somewhere with permission and it becomes their fixture. You know, so if it was on a building with the owner's permission, then arguably it still belonged to Banksy or it belonged to the owner. Oh, that's a nice view. I'll just get a little bit nearer the edge for you. Not too near, because people keep pointing out it's a bit idiotic of me to do that. But it's stunning down there, isn't it? So yeah, so whoever's taken this, arguably, they still, let's move across a bit, they have acquired the good title, and that now belongs to them. Now, paintings on walls, which is Banksy's company, they issue certificates of authentication saying this work is a genuine Banksy. But they only issue those 2 years after you've purchased them to just stop people flipping them really quickly and just try to you know, get a quick profit. So in this case, you wouldn't get the certificate of authenticity. But then again, people don't often care about that. I mean, it's quite strange with artworks. I've done lots of cases where, you know, about whether things are authentic or not, including a really good one where they were able to prove, because of isotopic testing, that the painting, a painting had been produced after the Trinity atom bomb tests, which was a bit annoying for us because we were actually for the auction house, and it's like, are you sure they didn't have any atom bombs in 19th century Poland? I mean, you know, that Madame Curie lass, she was really smart, but anyway. So what am I rambling on about? Authenticity. Oh yeah, the fact that, I mean, there's loads of decisions where the court said something isn't authentic and the market said, well, we think it is, so it still sells for millions. There's quite a few cases where the court said, we find this is authentic, and everyone's going, well, you shouldn't have done, because it clearly isn't. There's a really good judgment on a fake Vermeer, the one at St John's, where some friends are involved in that as expert witnesses, and the judge goes through all the list of, you know, why this is not authentic, and he goes, well, you know, there's this testing. He goes, you know, we've got all this expert evidence. He says, or of course, you could just look at the thing and tell that it's clearly not an original, not a genuine one. But yeah, so you know, whoever's nicked that can sell it. What about graffitiing over the graffiti? Well, again, if he's put that just on a wall without permission, which is his usual way of doing it, like he says, you just turn up with a high-vis jacket, put some bollards around it, and then just mumble that you're not getting paid enough to do this job, and people just assume you're there for the council. But the fact that somebody has graffitied over it, well, that's just what we call transformative art. And the irony is, if you have a piece of art that you own the IP in because it's your creation, and somebody comes along and vandalises it to such an extent that they have transformed the work of art, they can actually get their own, create a new IP in the transformed art. There's a very interesting case about this. A couple of years ago, this was all the buzz of the art law world. It's called 5 Points. And this is about a building in New York. And the owner of the building, to, you know, make it a bit edgy and cool, he actually allowed people to graffiti on it. And they more or less curated it. They sort of, you know, he said to some guys, I'm going to trust you only to pick people who do really nice artwork, but then you can put it all up there. And they did, and they had loads of really cool graffiti. But then he wanted to redevelop the building, you know, and turn it into, like, you know, to actually sell it on, turn it into posh apartments. So that involved getting rid of all the artwork. Now, interestingly, you know, now over here, if you sort of commission a piece of artwork and it's done on your wall, or somebody graffitis your wall without your permission, you can just knock the wall down. It's tough, you know, it's your wall, do what you like with it. However, I'm going to have to turn around soon because I've only got limited parking, and also I'm wandering a little bit further away from where I expected. But yeah, so you can do what you want in this country. I mean, artists have certain moral rights, which is the right to be, you know, identified as the artist. It's also the right to be unidentified as the artist, if they say that's nothing to do with me, and also not to have their art denigrated. So if somebody uses their art for a spoof or a parody, they can disassociate themselves with that. And if somebody buys some art and tries to do that, then you can actually, come along, you can actually sort of say, no, I don't think you should be allowed to do that. I don't care if you own it. I didn't sell it to you to be trashed. But in America, well, in New York specifically, they have something called the Visual Artists' Rights Act. And that allows artists, it gives them certain rights over their own materials. And it kicked in this case because it protects any art of recognised artistic merit. So these people said, well, you've just trashed our art, and we're going to say that VARA means you owe us damages. Now, this guy could have easily got out of this by giving them notice. If he only had to give them 30 days notice to say, look, guys, I'm going to knock down this wall or paint over it. Your artwork is there. I'm giving you 30 days notice to do what you want with it if you want to try and recover it. Now, obviously, because it's all graffitied, in practical terms, there's probably not a lot they could have done. But because he didn't do that, the court said, well, VARA kicks in. And therefore, these artists, they have had their rights breached, and you can owe them damages. So the issue then turned on what counts as recognised artistic merit. You know, who recognises it? And this went all the way to the US Supreme Court. And they said recognised is just by the art community. We're not going to get too much into this, because there have been some really interesting cases on what counts as what is art, you know, for tax purposes and things. And I am intending to do a video on that. with the wonderful James Payne. Check out Great Art Explained. It's a fantastic channel. It really is. But they said, we're not going to get into the debate about whether this is good or not. If all you hippie artists think it's good, that's good enough for us. And they said, okay, here you go. Graffiti artists, your art has been sullied. Have $6.7 million in compensation. So there you go. So yeah, so the situation in America is somewhat different to here. So here, if you see a Banksy, feel free to graffiti it to your delight. If you see one in America, be very, very careful unless you want to be handing out, because I think it's something like, it's several $100,000 per artwork is the sort of maximum claim on the damages. I know you like my asides, we once threw out a Banksy into a skip, because I used to live on a place called Hoxton Street. This was back before it became the trendiest place on the planet, and it was a really cheap place to live, which is why I lived there. And all the artists hung around, and our front door had a little massive hole in the side. And at the time, this young artist that we sort of vaguely knew about, he just graffitied like a rat, as if it was a doorman letting people in and out. But then the council dug the street up, and the front of our building dropped down a little bit, and Les, the freeholder. If you want to see my building, watch that Bittersweet Symphony video by The Verve, because I lived in above the shop that sold all the cheap washing machines. And Les, the landlord, he said, hey guys, I can get someone out of the council for this and I can get you a new front door. So he got a new front for his shop, and we got a new front door. So we binned the old front door. It's just into the skip, and it wasn't, and then after until like everyone went, retrospectively Banksy's really famous and popular, that we semi-regretted that. Although, as it happened, back in the early days, I did actually swipe a load of things from a Banksy exhibition, which we are entitled to do. He'd left them there. Remember, he's the one who says copyright is for idiots, and he's very anti-property. And he had all these stickers that said authorised graffiti area. So we just got a load of, the idea is you just stick them around places. So I just nabbed a bunch of those and used them for like birthday and Christmas cards for a few years, before obviously people realised just how much they could be worth. The funny thing about that is, he'd painted some animals at that exhibition. He'd painted some cows and some sheep and some pigs. Don't like the pigs like police cars. And I can't remember what he'd done with the sheep. But a few people were protesting that. And as you know, normally I'm very animal rightsy. And I sort of semi-agreed. But I was there with a friend and we were a bit hammered. So we went back to my place. She's an artist. And poor old Sassy, my dog, we stenciled on her, in watercolours, totally harmless, painting animals is wrong, and then stood with the protesters. There you go. Where am I today? If you've watched my other video, depending which way I put them round, I'm still at Watergate Bay, because I've paid £2.50, £2.60 actually, to park here with the little reminder text to the National Trust. So I want to get my money's worth. So I thought I'd shoot 2 videos. But I have to say, this is a stunningly beautiful shot. And now, have I done the like, subscribe? Well, I don't even, just go subscribe to Dan's channel.